Welcome back to Evolving Waves, where we ride the tides of adversity to reach the shores of success. Today, Jonathan Boncek is back with us for part 3 of his mini-series, part 3 of 4. We have had quite the insightful discussion to this point, so if you haven't already done so, please be sure to go back and watch parts 1 and 2, where we talked about his life, his upbringing, his business, the implosion of that business, and then just getting to pick his brain a little bit about some of his avenues that he pursues in the world of therapy. So before we get into this one, we want to take a second to shout out our sponsor.
Before we get into his story, we want to quickly shout out our sponsor. Today's podcast is brought to you by Stingray Branding, a national lead generation-focused marketing agency that helps businesses generate an ROI from their marketing efforts, including web design, social media, Google search, email, automations, and more. Learn more about them at stingraybranding.com.
And with that taken care of, today, Jonathan Boncek back with us for part 3. Thank you so much again for your time, Jonathan.
Excited to be here, Neil.
We have very much enjoyed talking with you and getting to pick your brain. And let's start today with a little bit more of a concrete answer. We've talked about some things that are probably more open-ended, but let's start with what you call the 7 pillars of transformation. So what is that? Where are the 7 pillars and why are they important?
Yeah, and thank you for that question. And these 7 pillars of transformation with working with clients and in having dialogues within podcasts and other thought-provoking individuals, these are the 7 things I really started to notice that I would help people on. And so my 7 pillars of transformation, and they all stack on each other. So number 1 is perspective. And we've talked a lot about perspective. And my quote around this is, how you perceive will be how you proceed. So challenge your perspective. If you're in a place that you do not like, challenge that perspective. Why do I think that way? Was it because I was taught this way? What if I flip roles with a person that is maybe on this other side of this perspective and maybe attach myself to a story that might be more beneficial to my current situation? So that would be pillar 1, perspective. How you perceive is how you proceed. Number 2 is about mindset. And it kind of bleeds into perspective, but what you believe about the world will dictate what you receive from the world. So are you living in a growth mindset or a fixed mindset? And this is from Carol Dweck's work out of Stanford. When we're in a growth mindset, we see challenges or obstacles as challenges to then get over. If I'm in a fixed mindset, I see that challenge. I'm like, well, I guess this isn't the avenue for me. And so how can we shift that and look at our challenges in our life as actually growth opportunities? Because a better version of ourselves are actually on the other side of those challenges. So then we get into emotional release. Because some people might feel, well, I'm living with a lot of guilt, a resentment about how I handled things in the past. But what I really encourage people to do is put that emotional weight down. Because transformation isn't about addition, adding more stuff. It's about subtraction. And you find out who you are by who you're not. So look at those situations in your life where if you're holding on to guilt, resentment, biases about things happening, look how much energy it takes for you to hold on to those feelings. How much energy is it taking for you to constantly ruminate on these negative feelings? And now, what if we just put that down? What if you forgave? How much energy would free up? Because true forgiveness isn't about the person being okay with you. It's about you freeing up your energy. You're holding on to so much. So everything that's happened in your past, realize that got you to today. And yes, I understand some people might not like their position of the day. But why don't we shift our perspective of the story that you've been telling yourself and look at that? So see how they're stackable there. And then I like to say this follows a triangle over a pyramid. The peak of the pyramid is self-love. How you speak to yourself will become how the world speaks to you. So speak love into your reflection. And there's a great, the Japanese scientist, Morimoto, maybe? That might be an Iron Chef. Pardon me. But
is he an Iron Chef or is he a scientist or is he a geologist?
He took 3 jars of rice and he had a sticker of love, on one, a sticker of hate, and one he left empty, like with no label. And every day he spoke love into the loved one. He spoke hate into the hate one, and then he completely ignored and this was just dried white rice. Over a 2 or 3 week period, what happened is the loved one was good. Nothing happened to it. The hate one was starting to mold. The worst one of all was the one that was being ignored, that the whole jar was moldy. And so these are the energetics of speaking. So speak love into your reflection. And this is so important. I mentioned this in the last few episodes, that we all have got to be our biggest supporter and our biggest coach. And pulling in a little bit of spirituality here is the two most powerful words in our English language or language is I am. And whatever follows I am will follow you. Whatever comes after I am will come after you. And, I love all spirituality. I love the idea of spirituality. I was raised Catholic. I don't necessarily follow the Catholic Church anymore, but I acknowledge it all because I do believe while we live on a sphere, we can't have a universal belief, but we can have a universal experience of something greater than ourselves. And so in the Old Testament, the only time in the Bible that God references his name is in the Old Testament when Moses sees the burning bush. And he said, who shall I tell him that sent me to free my people? And he says, you tell him I am that I am.
Anochi in Hebrew. Yeah.
There you go.
I'm Jewish.
I love it. In the Torah.
I speak Hebrew, yeah.
I love it.
Yeah.
And so that Hebrew, that actually brings me to another, I believe it's either Hebrew or Aramaic, and maybe, Neil, you can help me if you're fluent in Hebrew. Abracadabra. The original translation of abracadabra, and it might be in Aramaic, but it's Hebrew and Aramaic are one of the two out of the 4 original languages. Sanskrit, and there's one other one. Abracadabra, I speak, therefore I create. The power of our words, And so if I am speaking to myself with criticism, with complaining, with comparison, my self is not going to respond in kind. Think about that rice experiment I just said. Now, think about you're talking to your 5-year-old self. As I mentioned in episode 1, when I looked at myself in the mirror and said, I love you, I forgive you, and I'm sorry. I started to speak to myself like I was with my 5-year-old self. Because if I took my son who's 9, when he was 5, if I constantly complained about him to him, if I constantly compared him to other children, and I constantly criticized him, would A, he feel loved, and B, would he really want to be around me? Probably not. And I believe it was Jay Shetty who coined the cancers of the mind, the 3 C's: comparison, complaining, and criticizing. So if you're doing that to yourself, you are already behind the 8 ball. You are already leading yourself in that residence of negativity. I am not enough. So love has to start from the inside so it can then pour out. So that is the pinnacle of my pyramid of transformation. Then we start to move down on the left side. So this is when we can get to that idea of self-love. And speaking love, I can handle uncertainty when I truly love myself. And the only certain thing in life is change. So I can handle change. Then we start to move into behavior patterns. Can we identify negative behavior patterns? Because awareness awakens action. So stop the autopilot you've been on. And how do we do that? What is something negative that somebody might be doing? Maybe it's drinking. And I've worked with clients on this, and they don't want to. Well, what is happening with the drinking? It's actually serving an emotional need. That person may be connecting with the alcohol. They feel accepted. Or maybe the people at the bar accept that person because no one else accepts them. So they're at the bar drinking, drowning their sorrows. And there's this aspect, I'm connecting with this, or I'm just numbing out because I don't want to feel the feelings that I've been carrying my whole life. So maybe we can put those feelings down. We can back up. We can change that story from the perception of it, because maybe your mindset was in a fixed mindset around these stories. So let's get back to that original story, work yourself up to self-love, and realize that your story is unique and you have unique attributes and skills to serve people. Where are the behavior patterns? Let's break those. And that takes some repetition. That takes really examining yourself and saying, what about my behavior do I not like? And what is it actually doing? Because all of our behavior is the biggest language of it all. Our behavior is doing something for us, or we wouldn't be doing it. And it's either protecting us, punishing us, or prioritizing us, i.e. getting attention. So maybe that alcohol is protecting me from feeling. Maybe it's punishing me for the guilt that I've felt. And so I'm just going to drink my sorrows away.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. First, going back to the question, I figured I can answer that very quickly. Abracadabra is not from Hebrew; it's from Aramaic.
Great.
Yeah. So just wanted to clarify that. Hebrew does borrow a lot from Arabic and Aramaic both, so they probably use the phrase a lot. But it's avracadabra. But
excellent.
Yeah, not Hebrew. The second thing is you're talking about addiction and how it can mask some feelings that we don't want to feel. Alcohol and drugs, I guess, are both in the same category. They both mask those feelings. I imagine that porn would mask something else. I don't know what that would be, but I'm sure it's taking up a void. It's filling a void that they want filled of some form. So I guess the question then is, how do you as a therapist learn to draw the line between if someone is truly addicted or they just enjoy it?
Well,
or is there a difference?
Well, great question. If they are in my office and saying, I can't stop and I want to, we start to realize that there's an addiction there. If they're like, hey, I like having drinks with my buddies, I can stop whenever I want, and their behavior matches that, they might not be in my office in the first. So if it come to the point where like, I cannot stop this behavior and I need help, and they're in my office, we're probably already past that line. Because an addiction is always wanting something more, never getting enough. With alcohol, most time people will just pass out, and God forbid it shuts them down. Health issues, right? Yeah. And if we don't hear the whispers within our health, we'll hear the screams, and that's when those real big health issues start to manifest. So that is a great question, because social media addiction, going back to last episode, because we're getting dopamine hits every time we pick up that phone. And porn is a big one as far as dopamine. And men want to feel connected, and they might not have time, but they can connect with this screen and get that dopamine release, but it's really a false release. And it becomes when we keep on hitting that dopamine, we need more of it to get that same level. And so then a lot of clients who have dealt with porn addiction, it starts going down the dark places. And that's when they start saying, I don't even like the stuff I'm looking at. But that's what it's starting to take for me to get the same novelty interest, because it's novelty within porn. I'm going to go down these rabbit holes, and it can be an ugly place.
Yeah, I mean, I remember watching an interview with, I think it was a sheriff of a county in Michigan, Genesee County, Michigan, Chris Swanson, where he said when we deal with addicts, it's never as good as the time before it, unless you put more effort and expend more resources into it, and that is just too much. It'll never be better than that. So that I guess can be a little bit easier to detect in your sense when it comes to someone who says, yeah, I can't stop. When they say, yeah, I don't even like the stuff I'm looking at on my screen, but I just keep doing it anyway because it's different. It's a novelty issue. So what then do you do without, trying to give people free therapy? I know this is this is a business for you, and it has to be, but what generic, I guess, advice would you give, at least on the surface level, to say this is how you can stop with this behaviors, be it porn, be it drugs, be it alcohol, be it something else completely? Sure.
That with RTT, we can really dive into that, what it's doing. But for someone, when I'm working in workshops, I like to tell people, think about those three things that this behavior is doing. Is it protecting you from feeling? Is it punishing you for something you might have felt like you needed punishing for? Typically that a lot of shame equals punishment. Or is it prioritizing you? Are you getting attention, i.e., are you connecting with somebody or something or some environment? And think about what that's doing for you. And if it's something you don't want to do, how can you then find connection? How can you let go of the guilt? How can you create a better aspect of protection, which goes back to our self-love, because I don't want to let myself down. And self-worth comes from actually keeping promises to yourself. So this will build a little bit on the seventh pillar, but addictions are tough because the mind has learned through repetition. And over time with addictions, those synaptic connections have gotten even tougher. So what we have to do is take the first step. How can I identify when that urge is coming to me, identify it, and then say, this isn't me, this is a part of me. And what does this part of me need right now emotionally? Does it need connection? And then give it a funny name. Johnny. There's Johnny again. He wants the booze. He just wants to feel connected. What can I do right now to not listen to this part of me? Because it's not you, it's just a part of you that your subconscious developed for some reason. Again, punishment, protection, prioritization. So again, awareness awakens action. How can we become aware of it first? They even say that in AA, awareness is the first step, right? Of I am an alcoholic. So there's a lot there within the workshop dynamic. And if it's really serious addiction, that's when I'll really encourage an RTT session to find out why that's there, because it really has a grasp on that protective or that punishment or that prioritization.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's a good answer to what I was going to ask next. I mean, what is a certain practice or habit that you recommend for fostering discipline over time? But that's it, time. Mm-hmm. Discipline over time, repetition, doing it again and again and again. I guess it's not satisfying, but that probably is the best answer because the mind does learn through repetition. I guess the question becomes with relearning, when you have learned a prior behavior, a prior thing to do, and you have to override it. Mm-hmm. How difficult is that as a therapist?
Yeah, and so with RTT, what we do, and I mentioned the self-hypnosis audio, and so that is going to lay down those, and yes, backing up patience. You have to say, you know what, I'm not, and with addictions, let me back up even one more. I don't want to drink today. Okay, let's stop this to not even I don't want to drink today. I don't want to drink right now, not even this hour, this minute. And if you have to reiterate that yourself, I'm just not going to drink right now. Because a lot of times, I don't want to drink for 21 days. I don't want to drink for this week. Start right now. Because you're going to have these urges come up. And an urge is energy. And so we can either latch on to that energy. It does take some resilience and grit to step back and say, I'm going to let this pass. And this is where I do encourage, and I have to meet people where they are, but I do encourage people to, whether it be go for a walk, do something physical. If it's as small as going for a walk, get outside and just go for a 10-minute walk. Or if it's somebody's with exercise, use that energy. Again, the battery analogy of positive and negative, there's energy there to create a positive state. But for true addictions, I'm just not going to do it right now. And reiterate that every urge that comes up. And so going back, if I'm going to pull somebody into RTT, and addiction usually is going to filter down, because what we're talking about is my 7 pillars of transformation within workshops. So that will lead where somebody off to the side, typically they're not going to, in a workshop, going to say, hey, I struggle with this. I need some help with this. All right, let's get to what this alcohol is actually doing. And I've even seen it where, if I didn't have this alcohol, I'd probably kill myself. There again, it's protecting you from actually dying because it's not making you feel the feelings. And so we have to install a new belief system because that alcohol is serving some sort of purpose. So that behavior patterns was 5. 6 is lifestyle as it pertains to values. And this is really important because what I want and challenge people to do is to identify their values objectively, not subjectively. We can all say, well, I value money and I value, nice things, food. Okay, where are you spending your money? Where are you spending your time? What are your conversations around? What are your goals oriented to? What are you teaching your children around whatever it is? Let's look at these objectively, and there's ways to do this to then identify your top 3 values. And let's match your behavior to those values, because typically if you identify your top 3 values, your behavior is already there. Because when you match your behaviors to your values, it's a direction. It's not a decision. There's no decision fatigue. I don't have to think about it. It's just part of me. That's what I value. So if, say, finances are not in your top 3 and they want them to be, what do I do in my 1, 2, and 3 top values? How do I behave? Well, now you realize that's how you have to behave and incorporate for that financial value to now become in your top 3. It's behavior. So that is 6. And 7 is discipline. And you alluded to that just a minute ago. And discipline compounds over time. So make 1% of change every day. And that might be, I'm not drinking right now. If I usually drink a 6-pack, well, maybe it'll 1%, maybe I can go down by, 1 beer. And discipline compounds over time to get people to start whatever discipline they need. Let's get to the point of 80-20 lifestyle. Are you familiar with 80% of the time you're living a disciplined life? Earn your 20% of enjoyment.
Debauchery.
Now, with addictions, that's a little bit different, but a lot of times it's with healthy lifestyles. I do actually see people with weight loss issues within the RTT space, which is fascinating work. I mean, it really is. And incorporating, I was like, well, I enjoy the burgers and I enjoy the fries. Okay, let's compound days. Discipline compounds over time. So just like an investment compounds, I want to compound 5 to 6 days of solid eating, and then you enjoy your 7th day and eat whatever you want. But know tomorrow that you're going to be back on it, and give yourself grace and enjoyment. Don't be beating yourself up for doing this stuff. Enjoy it. Earn that 20%, as well as take note of how it makes you feel. And get back on it tomorrow. What you can't do is compound negative days, because that also starts to drive up.
Yeah, I mean, again, repetition, compounding negative days. The body learns, the body and the mind learn through repetition. And if you're compounding positive days, but then if you compound negative days, you'll, I guess, find it a lot easier to compound more negative days, because those are the ones that are more enjoyable to you. So all very fascinating and very insightful. And hopefully this can help someone out there who's dealing with whatever it may be. Alcohol, drugs, weight loss, porn, maybe it's even something worse than all that. Maybe it's abuse of some kind, and you want to just try to be a better, father or mother or spouse or whatever it is. Compounding positive days is definitely a good trick. Just one day at a time, and just training yourself to do it this time, and then an hour later, the next time the urge comes back. Well, you just did it an hour ago. You conquered the now, conquer it again. Mm-hmm. Keep compounding those conquerings of the now, and you can start to develop more habits, and habits are something that compound over time as well through discipline. So all very insightful and very, very good info and insight. And I wanted to end part 3 by asking about your personal perspective on all this, because we talked at the beginning of episode 1, which feels like years ago now, about your upbringing, your childhood, your business venture. And I asked you at the end of episode 1 how all of that impacted what you do now. Now, having gone through all that we've gone through in your approach to therapy with RTT, with hypnosis, I'll ask it again. How does your personal experience, your experiences, your business ventures, your childhood, all of that, how does that influence the way you approach a specific patient or a client, or does it?
Well, I think it does, Neil. I think having a safe space. I really strive to create a safe space that is non-judgmental. And I wouldn't be in this work if I was in a judgmental place. So to be able to hear people's pain and hardships and make them feel heard, because for the longest time I wasn't heard. And that took me to actually listen to myself and hear and see myself. So it influences it greatly. And majority of my clients say, this feels safe in here. I was like, that's all I want for people, is to create a safe space that they feel comfortable, that they can be seen and heard, and they can feel like they can trust me, because trust and faith and fear require us to believe in something we can't see. So if I can create a container for people to feel welcome and safe, which I had to learn that of cultivating safe spaces around me, which that empathy and humility that I spoke about as a little kid, that's where I'd find my safe space with the people that were bullied. I would go and be humble and empathize and understand. And I still have two of my best friends from that I still keep in touch with because we were kind of the outcasts. And I think about that of people that were bullied in elementary school and middle school. We each gravitated towards each other. So I'm like, this is actually perfect for what I'm doing now because I still want to be that same person.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's amazing to think about how we all grow through our personal experiences. And that really is the theme of Evolving Ways. We grow through our own experiences. We come out better on the other side. Talking with Jonathan, talking with Joe in the last few episodes, talking with Megan before that, really talking with everyone that we've talked with before. There's been some kind of adversity. There's been some kind of struggle, be it a business venture implosion, be it Joe really getting heavy with Joe. If you haven't watched that one, go back and watch that. And then Megan going through terrible experiences of her own, all coming out better on the other side. And not just that they've survived it, but that they've used it as fuel for good. That's a common theme too. It's not just that you overcome the adversity to live a good life. It's that you, in some aspects, you live a good life because of it. Megan talked about that too.
Mm-hmm.
She wouldn't trade anything that she went through. She went through some really rough stuff. She wouldn't trade any of it.
Mm-hmm.
Would you?
I wouldn't trade anything at all because that wouldn't lead me to this chair today.
That's exactly what Megan said. Yeah. And that's something for everyone to think about too. Whatever you're going through, you have Jonathan, you have Joe, and you have Megan who all said the same thing. They came out better on the other side. They came out better on the other side because of what they went through, not in spite of it. So as we wrap up today's episode, we do have one more with Jonathan coming up 2 Mondays from now. But remember, in the face of adversity, there's always the potential for growth, resilience, and success. Join us 2 weeks from today as we continue to enjoy more insight from Jonathan Boncek, and we put a bow on this mini-series. Jonathan, 3 down, 1 to go. It's been a lot of fun, and can't wait to wrap it up with part 4.
I love being here, Neil.